very late July and mid-September this year, we had a subject that was targeting some of the businesses around the 400 West Dunlap. And at the end of the day, after the subject was identified, we were able to bring all the cases together. 36 counts of organized retail theft. This is one person. Minor in possession of alcohol, 36 counts, 44 counts of trespassing, given previously trespassing on the property, and a good number of shoplifting charges that were able to assign to the person. So these are folks that we know that a small number of folks are responsible for a large number, or a large volume of crimes. So one of the things that we want to do is focus on those individuals and ensure that we're taking them up the streets. As it relates to 43rd Avenue, 35th Avenue, with Dunlap, that's okay. We had a lady who saw a subject she knew was going to participate in some type of criminal activity. She decided to address the criminal activity herself, and inevitably the subject was shot by the lady that went in there, and interjecting herself into that situation, it probably isn't going to work out for anybody. That's really what we're for. So she tried to interject herself in the scenario, and the subject inevitably was shot during the situation. Okay. So it's a survival injury on his part, but you really have to watch out with taking action, or what some might consider extreme action, as it relates to some of the crimes that you're seeing. Yes.
So the first thing we do for the people, we call 911, right?
Absolutely.
First thing.
Right. So crimes in progress, that's what 911 is for. If you need us to come out there and address an issue, that's what Crime Stop with non-emergency number is for. Right. So that's 262-6151, 262-6151, of course, area code 602, and then 911. We also, oddly enough, for our generational folks, you can actually text 911 Pacific Phoenix, and we can get your texts, and we'll respond to text 911 as well. We did have a homicide at 3421 West Dunlap, and we went out there in reference to a subject that was shot and down at the apartment complex. Witnesses and some folks out there were able to direct us to the location where the subject went. We barricaded the guy out and he's in custody for that homicide. That's a long-term project for us. The Phoenician issue, I think many folks are aware of the project, the property out there. We worked, I would say, very diligently with our team, McCartney and Marley Science, have worked very diligently with those folks out there. The issue that we had was it was sold off to individual properties.
I don't know about that.
As
That's
individual
bullshit.
properties, and as it becomes one property now and again, it's much easier
Bullshit.
for us to deal with issues out there as opposed to hundreds of individual properties that are stacked on top of each other. So we had that homicide, that subject's in custody, and Marley's taking care of business out there with Phoenician Palms folks, and they've been very good to work with the new management that are out there. So hopefully we'll see some real progress out there in the months and years to come. In reference to that same property, we did a targeted enforcement in reference to drug sales out there. We work with our drug enforcement folks, we work with our neighborhood enforcement folks, and we did a nice targeted enforcement out there effort. We work with adult probation too, because sometimes with some of these properties, you'll see that folks will cohabitate who, the birds of a feather concept from back in the day. So some folks are comfortable living together in different environments. A few of them came together compadres down the block.
Oh, yeah.
Another
Yeah.
issue that we have managed to make good contacts with the owners of the property from New York. They've flown in, and our crime control officer folks are working directly with them.
Oh, yeah.
The eyes of the issue.
For another month.
I think having direct, real person contact with these people is going to be very good for us. And then at the Larkspur Christian Church, the old Denny's, we've done a septet evaluation, and we work with them to sign the authority to arrest. So as you see folks out there, we do have the authority to arrest signed on the property out there, so we can take some action on those properties. Many times it's important for everybody to know that with the authority to arrest, we have to provide the warning, right? So if the property manager, the property owner provides that warning before we get there, we're more likely, or not more likely, we'll take action, but it facilitates our ability to take action quicker, right? So if the person's been previously warned and the sign is there, well, it's a very obvious thing that's going on. So that's helpful to us. Fentanyl, of course, is a really, really significant issue for us right now. We've identified some really good subjects that are really bad subjects, I should say, who have come in here, and what we're finding is the volume is significantly up, where previously we might be finding people with a dozen or dozens of fentanyl pills to sell. Now we've found some folks out here with a couple thousand fentanyl pills to sell. So fentanyl runs, it's a low-cost item for a drug addict. It's only a few dollars or $1, and they can, they can turn that over very quick. So we're doing our best to try to impact fentanyl sales here. So as it relates to the way crime happens, in my mind, it's not a cycle, but it's an environmental thing. So we have people experiencing homelessness, potential prostitution. There's a natural gravitas toward drugs, and as drugs become part of the mix, there's a natural gravitas to weapons. That natural gravitas to weapons creates violence. The natural gravitas of the violence is the homicides, right? So if we can address this at every level, which is what we're trying to do right now, it's hopefully going to be beneficial to the community. We did have a meeting with CMS, that's the Community Medical Services folks. What everybody needs to realize is, I think from our perspective, we know that when we leave good services to these people and they are given the opportunity to come off of their addictions or move away from their addictions, they become more productive, obviously members of society. They're become our better neighbors. They move out of their homeless or people experiencing homelessness situations. So we know that we want situations like CMS to be successful, but as they impact the community, we need to mitigate the impacts to the community as folks come and get those services. So we've met with them. It's a very impressive facility that they have there, but knowing that we have issues at that location, surrounding that location, we have the QTs here. We met with QT today, actually, and we brought up the fact that we have significant issues with calls for service, many hundreds of arrests at properties. Those things are going on. They know that we need to address them. We want QTs. Everybody wants convenience stores, but we need to create a reasonable environment where everybody can exist and the community can benefit from the businesses being prosperous here. One of the issues, of course, you probably hear about a little bit is the staffing of the Phoenix Police Department. We are in a situation right now where staffing isn't spectacular. There were probably, in 1993 when I got to CACTUS Park, there were probably the same number here today as I have working here today. So we do have some significant staffing issues, but we're trying to do our best to mitigate the impacts to the community. So what we're really starting to focus on, and what you'll see in the future, is our real focus on violent crimes and ensuring that we can respond to calls for service. So we have to respond to your calls for service, we have to investigate those crimes, and we have to arrest the perpetrators. So when you pin on one of these and you wear one of these, that is going to be your focus area. So if there are officers who do not participate or who have responsibilities outside of
Yeah. Bad
violence
cop.
downtown. We have the issues with people experiencing homelessness and looking at us for new reasons there. I think from our perspective, it's important that the folks who see the work that is done and really talking to everyone here, please take the opportunity to get on that website and provide your feedback as it relates to good or bad, right? So we're here to improve. We're an agency that was built on, we're very progressive. When you go around the country, you don't see body cameras and tasers and all the different things that we have in relation to the way we do our job. So if we can improve, we want to improve, but we also want to ensure that they're getting a complete picture of what's happening in Phoenix. And I'm not sure that picture or that puzzle has been completely put for them. So if you would please take the opportunity to get on their website from your perspective and just let them know if you think there's something that we can improve on. Let them know what you think that is. If you think we're doing something right or wrong, let them know. Like I said, we're a learning organization. We're going to try to do better. So, really appreciate it, and very much thank you to the school for allowing you to ask me. And if you have any specific questions for us, it's probably not a great time to take specific questions about locations or anything, because everybody has their own activity plan. So I don't want to get into that. We'll be here after the meeting, but if it's a general question or broad question that I can answer, I can help you out with that now. But thank you to the school, thank you to the block watchers for getting together and really having the
Staff is here, because many of these people don't know, those of us who are involved on a regular basis do, like everybody else, get a chance to find out.
Kane's background is significantly involved in community engagement. So
That's okay.
Kane has a huge amount of experience as it relates to problem solving with the community, as it relates to our ability to do good things when we have. So we couldn't pick better. I actually didn't think of it.
He keeps me around.
As my resource lieutenant, and resource lieutenant is exactly the way to describe Scott, because if you're not sure, Scott knows what resources we're going to come from to solve the problem. The problem takes care of all of our liquor enforcement, all of our abatement. So he is Swiss Army knife of the police. And so let's just take a look there. So as you identify many of the problem areas that we have, one of my first questions to Robin is, can the communities be statistically supported by facts, right? So we might feel something about the property, but if we support that with the facts in the area, and Robin then goes through, get identifies what the four issues are, and then with Scott and the team, we work our way through those issues. So Robin, yes, is your hometown community action officer.
Go Austin.
Literally, that's the face of the Phoenix Police Department to you. So anything you need in reference to any of these items and as it relates to community issues for our investment in Austin is to make sure that plans that we are here to impact the issues that you're experiencing. And then my reason, so recently selected, not too recently, now around the laws department, for community action officers club. So Myra comes to us from a variety of different precincts, and she was a detective for a nice amount of time, and she brings a great perspective that we previously with the community action officer does. So Myra brings a unique perspective.
So, just to think of the feedback of the commander saying, we definitely need support from the community, so I'm definitely reaching out to you folks. If you are interested or have the desire to serve the police, we are hiring. If you know someone that wants to take an interest in it, again, just go Phoenix Police. Folks that want to dispatch, we are hiring for that as well. Obviously, we all have experienced the lack of feedback when it comes to calling 911 name as the reference, just throwing it out there. They do have a signing bonus of $7,500, so hopefully that will be an encouragement for folks to at least take a look and, put your name in the hat and try. But if you have any specific questions about a certain issue, I'll be right to the left, so let me know and talk about it. Okay, thank you.
Most of you don't know, my grandson Caden is here. Caden is with the Avondale Police Explorers Group. If he was 5 or 6 years older, I'm certain he would be jumping on that signing bonus because he really has an interest in becoming a police officer. I neglected to introduce somebody that's fairly important. He lives in this neighborhood, and most people do not know that he lives in this neighborhood, probably because he doesn't want you to know he lives here. Bill Adams, will you stand up? Bill is the president of the Washington Elementary School. So all of the elementary school in this area, he's responsible for. He's got a fine group of people working for him. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. It was beautiful. Guys that you see walking around.
And thank you very much for that. No, thank you everybody for the block lunch. It's just amazing what you're doing for our community. We see some of the gated alleyways. That's fascinating to me. I can't wait for this to be more about that. But what you all do, it's very, very much appreciated.
Anyone that attends our meetings, more than 3 meetings, generally can get an orange t-shirt. So come to the block watch meetings, especially since we're back in person again. It's funny that you mentioned gated alleys because we are going to talk about that later.
I know.
Okay?
They are good.
That's after we have somebody else a little bit more important to talk to me, right? Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Judy Schreiber. Judy is our state representative from Legislative District 20. I've been working with her over the last few weeks, referencing an abatement issue that Robin Gookol brought to my attention involving Los Compadres apartments. And in fact, as they start getting abatement issues building up with them, the owner sells it to a friend of his. And so the abatement process starts all over again. So Judy and I have been working together on that. She said she sent me an update late this afternoon. I haven't seen it. So what she has to say is going to be a surprise to me. So Judy, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Stan, for inviting me today, and thank you to everybody in an orange shirt and all of our police officers and community action officers and others. I'm really glad to see all of you tonight. This is, I am a fairly new state representative. I was just elected in 2020, but I spent my life in the Northwest Valley. I was a teacher for 27 years. And now I'm looking to make sure that I'm listening to people so that we can get things done. And so I really appreciated the chance to meet with Stan about a couple of issues. One is the abatement issue that you're already talking about. And fortunately, down at the legislature, I have really experienced policy advisors that I can talk to who will research information for me and help me communicate to all of you what's going on. Well, according to my criminal justice people at the legislature, in the criminal abatement statute, there is already a law that says that you cannot, get a previous owner like those compadres that you're talking about, they must inform anybody that they sell that property to about the abatement. And if they don't, there are big fines for that. So we should be able to hold them accountable as well as the new owners accountable
Yes.
for making sure that the mess or the criminal activity or whatever else is
Blight.
going on is resolved. Now, that's the information that I'm getting, but But I know that that's not the end of it, because I'm hearing stories that that's not happening. So I need to get more information from those of you who are dealing with this already and living with it already, to go back and say, hey, this isn't happening. Is it an enforcement issue? Is it something else? What do we need to do to change that? So that's my preliminary finding on that. And I emailed him the other day.
Can't hear him. Can't hear.
Can't hear
There we go.
Yes.
Okay, like I said, I'm Detective Gookol, I'm your abatement detective for the precinct. So, just to clear up a couple of things reference abatement. So, with Los Compadres, the difference is it's not owned by one individual owner, we have multiple owners. And the problem we have with this property is as a crime was occurred at 35th Avenue, Dunlap, no one owns 35th Avenue. If someone used the general address of Los Compadres, we can't identify which apartment, which unit, which owner that belongs to. So it's difficult in my job to process that, like, okay, this is our problem tenant, or this is our problem owner. So it's trying to change the culture, so it's getting hold of all the owners, and that's why Marley's here, she's our crime-free multi-housing officer for the precinct. And so we're trying to work in conjunction to get these owners on board with a crime-free program, and then trying to have that one single person, that voice that answers up, okay, this is what's happening on the property. But it's very difficult because you have multiple owners, not everyone works together. Some people are very difficult to get a hold of. So when I send out an abatement letter or contact an owner, many of the owners are not even in state, they're out of state, they're even out of the country. So part of my job is trying to track down that owner. So I spend several hours or even days trying to get that, trying to get that phone, trying to get that. You have certain people that, I'll answer your question. So like right after, so basically we have to track down that owner, notify them of the activity that's occurring, and give them the opportunity to rectify it. So that's whether it be, hey, this needs to stop, you need to send a 10-day notice to this tenant, or you need to evict. And I walk them through the process of eviction, going forward, how they can take care of this before it gets evicted. Because technically, you don't want your property to go under evict. I get usually about 2 to 3 properties a day where we have violent crime that occurs. My job is to track down that owner, notify them of what happened, and give them the opportunity to take care of that. It's like, hey, these are your options. This is what you can do. And this is how the police department can help you take care of that. So, Los Compadres is a big task at hand. It's not something that's impossible. It's something that it's going to take a lot of time. I've gone to court on a criminal ban. It took 2 to 3 years to pay a property. So it's not something that happens right away. And unfortunately, it's in our benefit to work with the owners because they can take care of, it's their property. It's a lot easier for you to kick someone out of your house versus us trying to force you to kick someone out of your house. Because now you're having to go to court, you have to testify. We have to prove that that owner knew this, and then they were complicit in this activity. So it's going to take some time. I'll put together a PowerPoint or a presentation just to kind of show you guys the steps of what we go through in the police department. And then I submit the case to the county attorney or the city attorney. And of course, they make the decision to say, hey, we're going to go take this to court, or we don't have enough. And of course, we need more. Because of course, that happens as well. Or we might present it in court and the judge says, yeah, police, yeah, we feel, yeah, you don't have enough. Because unlike your property, your cars, your house is your dwelling. And so it should be protected. And no one should just be able to say, hey, I believe this person's selling drugs, so police go take their home with them. So we have to have a lot of proof. And so literally I go through all the reports and I have to find out that the house was being used or this property was being used in the furtherance of a criminal act. It's not just the person who commits crime. Because we have a lot of people that come back into our community, that come from prison, just because they went to prison for a crime and they live next door doesn't necessarily, well, you can evict them because he committed a crime over here. That's not how it works. They have to use that property and using it in the furtherance of crime. So there's a lot of factors that go in when I consider abatement. And then after that, I generate off the abatement report. But I also talk to my sergeant, my lieutenant, my commander, to kind of go over this, because it's a big undertaking. And when we did abate a property, the police department becomes responsible for that property. We become the placeholders. And a lot of times, the public doesn't understand, we're not a real estate company. We can't manage properties. We'll do it in the best interest of the community, but we can't take a property for 30, 60 days, go there, and make sure people are not breaking in, not doing these things. And God forbid someone gets hurt. Who's in charge? The police department. And unfortunately, if someone gets hurt, it's your tax dollars. So you got to think of it in that sense. So yes, we want to use abatement. We only want to use it when it's really critical and something it's basically that property is detriment to the community. We don't want to use it all the time. We want to work with our owners, but it's something that we need to look into. We need to do. We will do it because we've done it before. I think we're one of the few precincts that's done it in the past. But a lot of it is letting the owners know that property. Hey, this is what's going on. This is what you need to do, and this is how we can help you. And if you don't do these things, this is what can happen afterwards. So I'll be working on that presentation. Unfortunately, like Commander said, we're busy doing a lot of different things. So definitely one of the future meetings, I'll put that with you guys. So like you said, right after the meeting, I'll stick around for any questions, reference individual properties. I know we got a big group and we have a lot of speakers, so I won't take too much of your time. Yeah.
We should define for the people the word abatement.
This question will not be heard on Zoom because you're not speaking into the microphone. You have to speak into the microphone or you have to
I believe Frank was supposed to be running to the people that had
So basically, abatement in a nutshell, in layman's terms, basically we're going after this specific type of crime. We're attacking this individual act that's causing this nuisance to the community. So it's a criminal nuisance. And so it's anything, whereas the way I look at it is it a house of prostitution? Is the house being used to sell illegal drugs?
Yeah.
Are there several acts of violence that are occurring on this property?
Yeah.
Is this a chop shop?
Yeah.
This is involving a major severe felony.
Check it out.
It's not something
Check.
where, hey, we have a lot of parties and there's a lot of legal parking, so we want you to abate that property. Because they get those as well. And it's like, a lot of times it's just a phone call talking to that neighbor. It's like, hey, you need to be a better neighbor versus, this is not really abatement versus, hey, we have somebody, and now a lot of times there's a confusion because we have something I always identify as a flop house, and I get told, this is a drug house. Well, you have a lot of individuals that we see in the neighborhood, they use drugs, we have a lot of people coming in and out. So people living a certain way or coming in and out of the house, that's not a crime. The crime, the act is actually catching them selling the drugs, possessing the drugs. And so whether it be our net teams or patrol serve a search warrant on the property, and I get that documentation like, hey, this is who we arrested, this is what they found in the home, and this is how they utilize the home, the property, and the furtherance of this crime. And that's how we make the connection for the video abatement. Yes?
I just want to know, is this a tax credit property over there, or what kind of program is this over there? You're saying individual owners, so.
I'm gonna say, it's a condo setup. You have owners that own different units. So you don't have one centralized owner. You have an owner that owns this pond, this group of units. You have an owner that owns this group of units. And so if you were gonna identify and say, hey, unit 123, this owner owns 123, 125, 126, this is the activity that's occurring on these units. It's related to these specific tenants. That's easier. I can go and say, all right, owner, these are your tenants. They're committing these acts on your property. You need to take care of this. You need to rectify this. You need to fix this. Versus, well, we just have the address of most compadres. We don't know that person lives there. We don't know if they're visiting. We don't know if they're related to another unit, or they're related to another complex across the street. We have no way to decipher it. So unless we can say that person belongs to that property, that person might even be trespassing on the property. We don't know.
There is a management company for that there. I mean, if I walk through the door, there's gonna be someone in that door, right?
There is. It's kind of I always say it's similar to HOA. When you have an HOA, everyone manages.
My question is, multifamily housing, me as an owner would have to call you. You don't go to them, do you?
I do go to them.
Do you go to them? Because
Yeah.
they told us, I do property management, got my house, I got multi-properties. We have to go to them, we have to go through the classes. We have to have them come out and observe the property, which was like shit over there. So, I mean, this place would flunk.
Put the microphone up where.
This place would flunk just in that, just the shrubbery or I mean.
Light.
Yeah, and so what you're discussing right there, you're talking about a zoning issue specifically. So this would be a neighborhood services
Well,
issue.
I'm talking about just the place in
Just
itself.
the appearance, just the appearance of the property, the appearance, just, so there's two factors here. When
So,
there's,
well, if they're doing their job, if they're with this crime-free zoning, once you go through your classes, you can arrest without going through management, correct? Because that's what they do, our properties, they can go in after like 7 classes of passing all the things, they'll go in there and just arrest the people. They don't have to ask management or anything like that,
what are you talking about related to trespassing?
trespassing, anything, drug traffic, you know.
Well, when it comes to trespassing, we just could get a blanket. I mean, I know for some of the common areas, but you have individual owners and they have a guest. We had that with a certain apartment complex where the manager was on site and she said, I want that person trespassed. And so then I spoke with the tenant, I'm like, are these people supposed to be in their apartment? He said, yeah, they're my guests. Well, she can't trespass them off the property. She can send him a 10-day notice and say, if this person returns to this property, you're gonna be evicted, you're gonna get kicked off. So the responsibility of the owner is like, all right, your tenant's not following the rules, it's written in a lease agreement, you need to get rid of them, you need to get them out.
If this management company, whoever it is right there, is not gonna cooperate, it's gonna continue to look like that.
Yeah. So then that's where so if it's, they manage and that's the specific unit that's causing the problems, and we have documentation of it, then we go after the management company, and then we go after the owner. But a lot of the times is once we notify the owners, many times there's a disconnect between the management company and the ownership doesn't even know that this is what's going on. Once they're aware of it, we give them the opportunity to fix it. It's like, okay, all right, Detective Gookol, I have this, I didn't know, I wasn't aware my tenant did, sold drugs or was conducting a house of prostitution on this property. How do I take care of this? So I explained to them, okay, this is the eviction process. Many times they have a pretty good property management company that already commits to the process and like, yeah, this is written in the lease agreement, we're gonna go to court, we're gonna have them, we're gonna notify you when it's set. Once that's done, that rectifies that.
That was the
Now,
great
whether
pumpkin.
somebody else moves in and does that, it starts to clock over.
The great
So, yes, we have to give them the opportunity, but we need to know that, we need to make them aware of what's going on with their individual tenant. And so, I know what you're saying, it's like, oh yeah, you went to the class, so if people are on the property, you can just arrest, we can't do that, because someone could be a guest of yours, could be a guest of theirs, and so, if that's an issue.
No, it works. It works. We give our reports quite frequently.
Oh, you're talking about the reports from the police department, yeah, from the crime free? Yeah, so this is the issue.
In order for it to work, though, you have to have an organization that is working. You have to have an organization. Look, you have to have an organization that's working. They're not working over there. That's a rabble. So if management's not doing anything about it, cleaning it up.
Well, and that's why that's what I was gonna get, my second part was gonna get to, we have criminal abatement and we have civil abatement. And so what you're describing is, there's two different things. The criminal acts, we deal with, the police department.
Right.
When you're talking about the appearance of the property and things falling apart, that's neighborhood services division, and that's maybe something you might wanna invite.
That's where it starts.
Well, no, absolutely. And a lot of times, we work in conjunction together.
I already have a picture of the neighborhood close compadres and Phoenician palms.
Yeah, you know what, and I'll talk to you right after, so, whether that means anyone else has any questions, or? Frank? Yes, sir.
Clear up in the minds of the people that are here. We need to clear up in the minds of the people that are here exactly what the working concept or your working concept of being is.
Yes, so, like I
The
explained,
gentleman asked that question a while back, and you didn't answer. I'll give you a second chance. What is the definition of
abatement is basically going after a criminal nuisance property and having them rectified. So basically, if this is a palm property, this is how we're gonna go and treat this property, whether it's through fines, through jail time, or through, hey, we're notifying you. Now, this is giving you the opportunity to take care of that problem. So it doesn't automatically mean, abatement, go to jail. No, abatement can mean, hey, you need to trim the bushes, or hey, you need to evict this person, or hey,
It's all
you might need to
BS.
sell this property.
That's BS.
And that's how we're
already.
gonna solve this specific problem, or this problem. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Is that it?
For now.
All right, that was easy enough, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. So clearly is that there are two different categories of these homes, at least two categories. The ones that are called sober living homes, which was the handout that you shared with me, are actually protected under both federal and state law. Sober living homes are explicitly for people dealing with substance abuse and addiction issues, which fall under the category of disabilities. And so these are treatment facilities. So the Fair Housing Act and the American Disabilities Act prevent the information about who is living there and what the address of that location is from being a public record. Actually, state law also stipulates that the Department of Health Services may not disclose the address of the sober living home. And I attach a lot of links for Stan so that you can kind of take a look at that and pass some of this along to you. However, if you observe that there seem to be suspicious activities going on there, or there seem to be way too many cars in front of there, then I have also provided a link where you can report that to the Department of Health Services. And they put out a report every year. And again, I have links to those reports for Stan, so you can see, what the percentage is, for example, of sober living homes is in Phoenix versus Glendale versus Peoria versus Mesa versus Buckeye, and see that as a general rule. They also report the number of complaints that they have received. So that's an important first step. I know it's not a quick solution, but it is a part of the process to getting that resolved. However, there is a second category that is really what I call a halfway house for people who have been released from prison. And these halfway houses are providing transition living to help those offenders move back into life on the outside. So if our concern is about the facility itself, I'm just refreshing myself by looking at my notes here, then there is a place where you can go and you can file a complaint about that facility. It's not maintained, or there's too much noise, or whatever the case might be. If your concern is on people who might be sex offenders specifically, there are several restrictions on where sex offenders can live, as well as restrictions on making them check in to the county sheriff's department on a regular basis. So it's safer, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, it's really safer for our community to know, to have offenders housed, sex offenders housed, because then we know where they are. If they cannot find housing and they're just out on the street, that's when it's really difficult to track them and make sure that we're keeping our communities safe. I provided a link to Stan, which I hope he'll share with you in whatever newsletters you get, that includes a place that you can put in your address, and you can ask for sex offenders in your area and find out exactly where they live. And you're probably familiar with that. Yeah, okay, so we're all aware of that. And that's basically what I have as a preliminary report. Again, I'm learning about all this as a new state representative, and this is what I'm learning from the experts in policy at our state legislature. but I am open to questions and complaints and what is it that I need to take back and still fix. So I can take a few questions right now, or come up and talk to me afterwards.
Everybody's got questions, I know you got questions. I have questions. And it's not just inquiring minds want to know. One of the reasons I talked to representative about this issue, and I know it's one that Frank is very aware of, we have a home that is going to house ex-offenders, 7 houses away from me. Okay? No notice out to anybody, anything about it. Next door, or 2 houses away from them, is a home that developmentally disabled. It's supposed to be over us, no more than 5 people living there. But there are 14 cars that are on the spaces.
That's visitors
They have that type
and
of
vendors.
staff to deal with that. They ought to be working someplace else rather than doing the problems that big. Ironically, 3 houses away from that is an elderly home that they're housing less than 5 elderly people in. And 4 houses away from them, the people applied for a gun permit to be able to sell guns on the internet from their home, and no more than 1 gun sale per hour during normal business hours. Now,
What?
talk about trying to sink the neighborhood. That's what got me going to, we gotta find out some way of dealing with this. Because we were told by neighborhood services that if somebody doesn't complain on them, all they can do is go up to the door and knock on the door and say, how many residents do you have here? If they say 5 or less, they have to leave. They can't go in and inspect it. Okay? There's no process to be able to complain about it. So if we did see something weird, we could file a complaint with the police, but I don't know that the police can go in unless there's been a criminal act committed. So it's kind of like catch-22, Frank.
The one that put into the application to sell firearms was 487 feet from the school.
What? Really?
487 feet from the school, as a bird flies. I got a reprimand from him, if you want to call it that, saying that if you drive down the street around any time you see it, it's more than 500 feet.
Oh.
And now it's also, should be noted, that the house felons are going into is 403 feet from that house. He also has a 3-foot wall around the house. So our concern is, most officers who have been here for 50 years, we have 5 or 6 foot walls in the back of our house. What's preventing somebody from jumping a 3-foot wall, and he's planning on going in and taking guns, ammo, and stuff like that? There was a sign that he was required to put out in his front yard about the license. I went over and looked, and he had a big Dodge pickup truck parked right in front of the sign, a foot and a half away from the sign. Joyce wouldn't even see the sign. So everybody going through that cul-de-sac supposedly to see the sign so that they could go and voice an opinion like this idiot here did. They don't see the sign because he's got a big Dodge truck sitting in front of him.
That's not right.
I reported it to several other people, and as far as I know, come next week, the week after, it goes to the city, and the city can go and approve this application. But he was smart. He even asked for an application, a license to allow high traffic volume on his street. And that was the issue number 2.
It sounds like something that I need to investigate in partnership with the city as far as zoning and housing codes and that kind of thing. So I'll get with Mr. Ryan and others and see what we can figure out on that.
My concern is, my concern was in less than 5 minutes from the school. As crow flies, whatever, it's the same thing as we have with drugs, as we have with other things. There's a certain distance that they have to be away from schools, and concerned, even though it's where a crow flies, a bird flies, whatever you want to call it, it's still 500, less than 500 feet from the school. And I did just look at the ballpark. I actually came up to the grounds of the school, the 190 years that is built. And
If you want to come up here so you can see the camera. I know that's going to be scary for the people at home on Zoom, but
I came to the alleys. I had the pleasure of the gentleman that's here this evening. His grandparents and parents lived there, now he's lived there behind me. And he and I take care of the alley. And anyway, from January the 3rd, when we go back from Montgomery until July of this year, we had 39 vehicles travel our alley between 2:30 in the morning and 5 o'clock. Doesn't sound like much. We got 16 houses. The only problem is those vehicles didn't have any lights on. Why are they going up and down our alley with the lights? So we also had at the same time over 80 people who do not live on our streets walking up and down our alley at the same period of time. And that bothered me. Especially when I had a couple of idiots look up on a 6-foot wall in my backyard. So Stanley and I talked about it, got together with NSD, and we got 5 gates installed. 2 on our alley, between Ironwood and Cinnabar, and 3 over on Ironwood, around the Purdue, and Mountain View. And we haven't had anybody come through. Well, I think about it. The first night the gates were installed, we had 2 cars from here. One had to turn around and go back to the back alley. The other one belonged to a city employee's son. And he locked those gates. So the second car came down and, I can't get out. So he had to back out. Next morning, I went up and locked the gates. We haven't had anybody since then. We have a wall. So, in my opinion, safety in the neighborhood, get it out, there you go. Stanley's was pushing, working on safety on the canal, trying to get the ones along the canal. And we just had about 6 so far, 5. And then you think, you're going to have gates, you go signatures there.
okay, I'm going to talk about this year's gated alleys. You know, all of the gated alleys come from the grant. And last year, when we got the 2, Stelda did the recommendation for us to get them. This year, Ann O'Brien recommended us get 8. Now, 8 and 2 is 10. That's every gated alley that they could recommend in District 1 was coming to our square one.
All right.
We didn't do 1. I was gone on vacation. And by the time I got back, it was too late to get signatures for it. But the 7 that are located along Passaic and Purdue, I've been out walking. Gates 5 and 6 together, I've got enough signatures for. Gate 7, I've got enough signatures for. Gates 1 through 4, I have 2 signatures short. I've got November 1st to do this application and to get it all in with the signed petitions. The problem is that along Camino and Cynthia, there are 23 homes that are rental properties that are owned by 16 different corporations. I sent letters, each and every one of them. Included inside was a petition for them to sign with the address where it was supposed to be signed for. And I had included a address, stamped envelope. Guess how many I've got back so far?
None.
No, I actually got one yesterday.
Well, that's good.
Okay, but it was on the gate 7 area, which I already had no signatures. So I'm hoping that we get some of those. There's only 10 more homes that are owned by people that supposedly live in them. 3 of them are vacant. Because you can see in the window, there's nothing in there. The rest of the people may be there, they don't answer the door or whatever. So guess what I'm gonna do again this weekend, after we do the drug enforcement take back, I'm gonna go knock on doors again. We're gonna get those last 2 signatures to make the gated alleys along that area. Yes, just a second, look, Frank, will you come up and give the list?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, Stan didn't get my signature. And one thing I'm concerned about is I have lived in this neighborhood since 1974. And my house backs up on the canal. I'm on this side of the empty lot here on Camino Sapien. And back in the old days, we could see people riding their horses on the canal. And nowadays, we see people from the neighborhood walking on the canal, going down shopping, going out for walks, people jogging. I've seen people from Cortez High School, the whole teams running up and down the canal. I've seen people from my neighborhood, not people necessarily living right on the canal, but people that would cut through the alleys to get onto the canal. They have their kids with them, they're looking at the ducks, they're walking, pushing baby buggies and everything. And personally, I think that for me, to be able to get to that nice canal, just stepping out my back gate is one thing, and being able to have a key to get to the 2 lots on either end of the alley, which direction I'm going for somebody to be able to access my yard is one thing. But for somebody else that lives in the neighborhood, that walks on the canal and doesn't necessarily want to walk all the way down to 35th Avenue or all the way up to 43rd Avenue to get onto the canal, I think it's kind of a disappointment. It's like not having access to the neighborhood park in a way. And so that's my point of view, and I'm wondering if anybody else sees that or feels that way about it.
We have alleys that run from street to street over at 37th River, and I was wondering, we have trash pickup coming down the alley, and would that be a hardship for the trash pickup? They have to unlock the gate.
That's something that, when the people signed the petition, they're saying that they're going to have their trash and recycle moved out front, and that they're also going to have their bulk pickup out there 4 times a year. Now, we've had it on ours long before we ever got the gated alleys. I think it was the best thing in the world that ever happened to me, because when I had the shared trash can out there with 4 families, I was out there all the time cleaning it up, because people dumped everything everywhere. By having my own individual, it doesn't get dumped. I take care of it. I take it out front, it gets all wet. So, to me, that is an issue. I will say, there's no charge. No, there's no charge. She said that there's a $25 a month charge to do that, and for 2 cans it's $50. There is 0 charge.
Yeah,
We've had the cans out front now for 5 or 6 years. Not 1 penny have we been charged.
And the other thing on that, we have an alley that is one of the largest alleys, lengthwise, in the entire neighborhood. When I moved in the neighborhood 2 years ago, we had the big, huge bins in the alley. They're always overrun, they're always having people digging them, they're always throwing trash around. And so I went on and found out how to get those taken away. And part of the process is use the canal at least 3 or 4 times a week. And my perspective is, I understand there's a few people, that their lifestyle would change a little bit by having the gates and all that, but for the whole community, it's so much safer to keep the people that don't belong here and are doing wrong things out of here. I personally won't walk on in this neighborhood by myself anymore. I used to, because of this people. So those gates are gonna keep us